Welcome back to another Fantasy Puck video, guys. It's Chris, and today I'm going to be bringing you guys a buy, sell, hold video. Really excited to go over a couple players with you guys, especially in the buy low and sell high categories. I always love these type of videos, and I know that you guys enjoy it too. So let me know in the comments down below what you think. But let's get right into it, guys. Here are 6 players you either need to buy, sell, or hold in fantasy hockey. Being able to get elite players at any point during the season is hard enough to begin with, so you need to really capitalize when it comes to timings in terms of things like injuries, and Kyle Connor is a perfect example right now. This might be the only time that he becomes available throughout the entire duration of the season. He's got 17 goals, 11 assists, 10 power play points, 102 shots, 3 hits, 9 blocks to start off the year. He is on a 6 to 8 week timeline, and he's 4 weeks into that timeline. I myself personally just made a trade 1-for-1 Kyle Connor for Tim Stützle. Ended up getting Kyle Connor. So let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of that trade. But with Connor, again, he's had such an incredible start to the season. He was competing for the Rocket Richard earlier on in the year when he was healthy, and then he suffered an injury, and now he's just kind of been sitting on people's IR. Some people are getting really antsy because their teams aren't performing up to the standard that they want. So we want to capitalize on these types of managers that have guys like elite players like Kyle Connor who are on IR on struggling teams. He's 7th in goals per 60 this season, 18th in shots per 60, 28th in shot attempts per 60 as well. He's a high volume point producing scorer. Kyle Connor's been very, very consistent over the past couple of years, especially. He's going to slot right back into line 1, power play 1. You need to, if you're planning on trying to trade for elite players, to trade for them when they're quiet. And right now, Kyle Connor's been sitting on people's IRs for 4 weeks. People have kind of forgot about him, so capitalize on this opportunity while you can, especially if your league counts goals heavier than assists, for example. I highly recommend buying low right now on Kyle Connor. Another perfect time to buy low on players is when they're struggling. Evander Kane, 14 goals, 10 assists, 4 power play points, 109 shots, and 118 hits with 18 blocks on the year. He's 22nd in the entire league for expected goals for. He's got over a 10 shots per 60, which ranks him 41st in the National Hockey League, and then over a 19 shot attempts per 60, which also ranks him in the mid 40s. He's also 12th in the NHL in hits per 60 with players over 300 minutes time on ice. The reason why I decided to go with 300 minutes time on ice is just to give you a little bit of a threshold so that you don't get the players that either don't get a lot of ice time or are consistently healthy scratches throughout the year. So you can kind of determine in that sense where Kane ranks amongst the more consistent starters in the National Hockey League for his hits per 60. He has 2 points in his last 10 games. And like I mentioned earlier, you want to capitalize when elite players are quiet. Evander Kane is one of the best peripheral players in fantasy hockey. We talk about it every single year. He plays on the Oilers, which is a high-scoring team. McDavid and Draisaitl have started to come around. They've figured it out in terms of their point production. And Kane's just struggled in his last 10 games. And as you can see, his 10 games prior to that, he had 7 points in that time. This, again, is a really, really good opportunity to buy low on somebody that is unbelievable in fantasy hockey, especially when it comes to bangers leagues. So my recommendation is seeing what you can get for Evander Kane right now. Grab him, do whatever you can to try and get this guy before he gets out of his slump, because once he starts scoring and producing again, you won't be able to acquire this player whatsoever. Moving on to our sell high players. Starting us off, we have Robert Thomas, who's having a fantastic year with the St. Louis Blues. 16 goals, 25 assists, 5 power play points, 80 shots, 8 hits, and 20 blocks on the season so far. He's shooting around 20% right now. His career averages kind of hover around that 15.5% mark. But in the recent years, in the past couple of years, he's been anywhere around that 17% mark as well. So he is shooting a little bit above his clip. But with Thomas, you'll see, again, a lot of similarities in terms of our other sell high players that we've had in previous videos. His value is equal to his production. He is not a high peripherals player. He doesn't have a very high floor in terms of that sense as well. I'm not saying Thomas is is a bad player or shouldn't be warranted on your team right now. But again, he is one of those lower peripheral players. 170th in expected goals per 60, 48th in assists per 60, and 322nd in shots per 60. So as you can see there, he primarily drives his offense from his playmaking. He's not good when it comes to shot volume. He's not good when it comes to hit or block volume either. He is on over an 80-point pace, so that does kind of put him at his peak value right now. I just think he's a great sell high option currently given his value and the fact that, again, he doesn't really have a good floor when it comes to peripherals or anything like that. Even his power play points are kind of down this year in St. Louis. He is on over an 80-point pace, so kind of use that as where you value him. Maybe you need some help on defense. Maybe you need some help in goaltending. I definitely recommend you move Robert Thomas while he's at peak value right now to try and improve your team. I don't know what happened over the last 2 weeks, but Jonathan Drouin now has 13 points in his last 13 games played. Something has clearly clicked for him in Colorado. 10 goals on the year already, 15 assists, 8 power play points, 90 shots, 6 hits, 15 blocks. He is now a consistent mainstay on the line 1 and power play 1, and he's played over 21 minutes in each of his last 5 games played. I just don't think with Drouin that his peripherals will ever be good, given the fact that, you know, he's just, again, very similar to Robert Thomas, where low shot volume, low hit volume, low block volume, and he's at peak value right now, as people are kind of looking at it as like, oh, I wish I held on to Drouin. He's now popping off like we expected him earlier on in the season. But in my opinion, this is the perfect time to sell, and you need to do this immediately before he starts to drop off again. Artturi Lehkonen is right around the corner coming off of LTIR. He's traveling with the team on their upcoming road trip. I expect he's going to slot into a top 6 role. I don't know what the plan is going forward with Jonathan Drouin, but I would just personally try and find a more safer option for you guys going forward. Somebody that you know is a mainstay in a top 6 role and isn't going to get beat out if they have a couple bad games in a row. Remember, Drouin was a multiple healthy scratch earlier on in the season, and it's very possible that this is just a hot streak for him playing with McKinnon and Rantanen based off of how they've been this year. It could continue, but again, very possible that he just gets bumped down the lineup because Lehkonen comes back in. Maybe they move Nichushkin back up to that top line. I don't know what the future holds for Jonathan Drouin, but I do know right now he's at peak value, and I highly recommend that you sell on him. Moving on to our holds, guys, Elias Lindholm is definitely more of a long-term play. I know he struggled in Calgary this year, and Calgary just as a whole hasn't been great. More of a long-term play for me, definitely, especially if you look towards the trade deadline. His time on ice has been great this year. It's increased from 1839 to 2056, almost playing on average 21 minutes a night. He is shooting at basically half of his shooting percentage as well in Calgary, currently shooting at 7.5%, where his career average is around that 15% mark. Last season, he had 22 goals, 42 assists, 21 power play points, 186 shots, 98 hits, and 50 blocks. This is a very, very well-rounded fantasy hockey player, and he's still on pace for 50 points and 200 plus shots. You just can't really move him right now because of where he's at value-wise, and I definitely don't think you should be dropping him, especially when the trade deadline is slowly approaching. You could look to potentially just hold on to this guy until he gets moved, which I anticipate he will. I think a lot of teams are going to be interested in this guy. The Bruins and Avs have already started to show interest, so imagine Elias Lindholm either playing line 1 in Boston or playing line 2 in Colorado. That would drastically bump his fantasy value, and his value just as a whole, I think, would improve. His production would improve. His ice time will relatively stay the same. He's going to play in a top 6 role wherever he gets traded to, if he gets traded. So again, I definitely recommend holding on to Elias Lindholm. He could even potentially be a buy low closer to trade deadline, but we'll see what happens in terms of the trades in the National Hockey League. But for right now, highly recommend holding on to Elias Lindholm. And then finally, guys, our last hold is Thomas Chabot of the Ottawa Senators. He's just getting back off injury. He's got 8 assists on the year, 1 power play point, 39 shots, 6 hits, 28 blocks. Chabot is 6th amongst defensemen in shots per 60 with over 300 minutes time on ice, and is 14th amongst defensemen in shot attempts per 60 in over 300 minutes time on ice. He's back on pair 1, power play 1 in Ottawa, and I get that the Sens have not had a good season again this year, but he's got 4 points in his last game since returning. He's always going to be an offensive threat. He's got great block peripherals on top. top of that. And again, you add all this together and the fact that there is still some upside there with Chabot playing pair 1, power play 1. I think he's definitely worth holding on to. Fingers crossed he stays healthy. That's really been the only concern with Chabot, is his health. When he is healthy and is in the lineup, he's an absolute stud on the back end, plays a ton of minutes. Like I said, great block volume as well, and a really, really good shot volume for a defenseman also. So his floor kind of brings him up when he's healthy. Highly recommend holding on to Thomas Chabot for right now and capitalizing on the fact that he's back on pair 1 and power play 1 going forward. That's going to do it for this video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know in the comments down below if you agree or disagree with maybe selling some of these players. Maybe you think Jonathan Drouin's worth holding on to. Maybe you think Robert Thomas is worth holding on to. Maybe you think, oh, it's too difficult to get Kyle Connor. Just let me know in the comments down below what you guys think of the video. I love hearing your guys' opinions and thoughts. As always, thank you guys so much for watching. Have yourselves a fantastic rest of the day.